Hi, good morning. Here's a short video that I put together for you on storytelling. And I know we're doing a business class, but storytelling is very important because you use it in both your written assignments and in your presentation assignments. And there's three very important parts to storytelling. So for every story you tell, you have to have an introduction, the body of your story, and a closing or a conclusion to your story. If you have a story with no introduction, then the reader or the listener doesn't know why you're telling the story. And if you have a story with no conclusion or no closing, then a few things happen. Your audience don't know what they should do with the information. Sometimes they don't know that the story is even ended. You just kind of keep talking until you get to the end of your data, your end of your information, and then you stop and you say thank you. And your listener or your reader doesn't really know where the story went or why it ended at that point. So you have to have the three parts: introduction, the body, and the closing. So for this short video, that part was my introduction. And now I'll get into the details or the body of my story. Okay, I have a short PowerPoint presentation that I did to help me with this story. Here is my short presentation. It's on storytelling. So there's three parts to every story. And first of all, what is a business story? Is it everything you write? Is it everything you present? Or is it even every serious discussion that you have with either a client, a vendor, or a coworker? And actually the answer to that is it's all three. So anytime you communicate information in business, you're telling a story. What are the parts of a business story? You have to start with your introduction. This is what my story is about. This is why you should listen. And this is what I'm going to tell you. So unlike an entertainment type story or a movie, you don't hold the ending a secret. You give out the ending at the start of the story so that your audience knows where you're going with this. So you don't really want to surprise people in business. You want to pre-warn the people you're talking to what you're talking about and why you want to talk about it. The second part is the body, and that's where you put all the details. You talk about your facts and your evidence, and you talk about your data sources, if you're using data, how you use the data, how you calculated your results. That's all the details of your story. And on one hand, that's the important part because that's the evidence underlying your story. But that's also the boring part of any story. So, to have a good story, you want the body to be short and concise. Just enough of it there to show that you have evidence behind your story, but you don't want to show every single detail. Then finally there's the closing or the conclusion. And here you tell the person or the audience what your story was about. And you're reminding people that here's what I told you, this is why it was important, these were my findings, and this is what we should do with these findings. Sometimes a big part of the conclusion or the closing is if your audience hasn't been paying attention, you want to bring them back into the story. So it can be a very important part of your story. So the most important parts then are the introduction. It tells your audience what you're talking about, and the closing. It brings your audience back into the story and tells them where we should go next. And that's where you need to put the emphasis on any story. I've given you three parts now. I did my introduction, I did my body and my details of the story, and now this is my closing. Anytime you tell a story, you have to have three parts. You have to introduce what you're talking about. You have to then give the details of what you want to talk about, and then you have to close it. You have to wrap it up. Now, this applies not just to verbal or audio presentations, it also applies to things you write. When you write a document, you need to introduce it, you need to have your details, and you have to close it. So anything you do with communication and business, you should be following these three parts. Thank you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.